Here we go. Okay. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classics, New Classics. Episode number 3341, Doubleshot number 3225. Yeah, it's been almost a week since I did one of these episodes. The last one I did was like last Thursday. So it was like 5 days ago. Sorry about that, but now I got basically the Comic Corner to talk about. Also, basically, I had to log back into the app I've been using because, new phone. And for some weird reason, not sure why this is, basically about 6 of the books I had checked out on there have been returned. So I had to recheck them out, and basically now we're here. So we have 2 books they're published by Image through the Skybound Studio. First up is quite possibly one of the best comic books published right now. That's not Spawn or Savage Dragon. That being Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson, called Combiner Chaos. Now, we do have the return of... Now, here's a little something, though. This book is one of 2 books to feature Ryan Ottley as the artist, because it's another book he's famous for, basically, we'll discuss next, that being Invincible. The other 2 artists are Jason Howard and Jorge Corona. The cover artists are Dan Warren Johnson and Mike Spicer. By the way, this book contains issues 13 to 18 of the series. Now, I need to look up on here because I just read these issues. Here. Have I actually read these issues before? That's a good question. Actually, no. 13 I read, but the 14, 18 I have not. Yeah, I've been... for a lot of the comics I've been reading, I'm actually... some of them I'm months behind on. Because... right now, I'm like about a year behind on some companies. Though Marvel DC, I try to keep up with them. But a lot of the other ones, I'm like about a year behind. Purely because basically of all the anime I'm basically doing, so I don't get time to do it. So here's what happens. We start off with Megatron. Looks like a flashback on frickin' Cybertron. He's fighting... looks like he's fighting Ironhide, Wheeljack, I don't remember this guy's name. So, Archie's in brain. He gets shot. And then Optimus Prime shows up to fight Megatron. And it seems like Megatron thinks he's won. And then his arm gets chopped off by Optimus Prime. Yep, the comic explains what Optimus Prime's got in present day. And then, of course, Megatron is... so, basically, this flashback pretty much explains exactly why Megatron was not on the Ark like he was in... generally every continuity that generally features Gen 1 characters. So he's shoved off into space before he shoved onto the planet by Starscream, who's now the leader of the Decepticons. And then he wakes up in Cobra Law. That's the organization from Cobra. Where basically he wakes up and he proceeds to rebuild himself. He basically... also, they've been taking him apart. Yes. They've been taking apart parts. And then he finds his arm, reattaches it, fights the force of Cobra Law with one arm. And then we have Soundwave basically slicing up Starscream. And then we have, looks like a flashback of the the brigade that Starscream came from, which led to become part of the Decepticons. There's a flashback to Cybertron here. And you can tell basically that G.I. Joe is in this universe. With another thing pops up here. So then we have Optimus Prime firing it, and then we have, I kid you not, the Dreadnoughts, the Dreadlocks from G.I. Joe. Yeah, they're here. This is Zartan's group. Zartan himself is not here, so they pick up Starscream, who has no legs, and attach him to their vehicle. And then we see a flashback of Megatron showing up in his full glory, but he doesn't have his arm, and he transforms into a gun. Okay, what looks like partial tank here. Okay, so let me explain something about this particular mode of his. I've heard that this is definitely the case of the original one. I did see him do this. He did transform into gun. Because a lot of the time people tend to think, oh, he transformed into a tank. Or he transformed into some kind of a Cybertron vehicle. Now, I gotta appreciate Daniel Warren Johnson for this. By having a callback to the original version of the Megatron non-robot form. Now, here's the thing. When they had the crossover with G.I. Joe, he transformed into a Luger. A German weapon. Because somehow Cobra was part of the Nazi party. For some reason. I'm not sure why. Despite the fact one of the members is Scottish. So, then of course you have him basically attached to the Dreadnought vehicle. And basically, Starscream is from alliance with him. We see more flashback stuff here. And then, for some weird reason, they have captured Astro Train and then proceed to open a portal, well, actually more like a space bridge, and for some reason, not sure why the heck this is, a section of Cybertron has been transported to Earth. You're like, what? Yeah. Oh, by the way, no suplexes here for some reason. Yeah, the Sonic Damn War Dragon. Then we have, have a ride on Astro Train. Yep. And they fly to the piece of Cybertron. How the heck it got here is never explained here, so. And by the way, he slowly kills off some dreadnoughts here. And then she's killed, and some of the dreadnoughts are pretty much killed. And then, basically Starscream is back with his old buddies. And then we have the Constructicons fighting against Soundwave. Then Ironhide wakes up on Cybertron where a piece of the planet is missing. And he's basically thinking, he's back home. And we see someone called Blue Star, who's apparently a brother of his. And then we see Optimus Prime reunite with look like RC. And then we have Spike and Carly. Yeah, they're here. Yeah, take a bit for them to show up here in this book. Yeah, then, of course, basically, then we see Optimus Prime basically seeing ruins of a city. And the cops are firing him. This something he had nothing to do with this. All those, all the Decepticons. Yep. And then, of course, basically, I think it's Thundercracker, or at least one of the flying ones, where they get sliced in half by, looks like it's Cup, maybe? Or, okay, it looks like Blue Streak. So, yeah, the guy changed. And, of course, basically, Starscream shows up with his new legs, and there's a conflict. And then we see Soundwave. By the way, the reason why that Starscream was kicked out of the Decepticons, because he kicked Ravage. And then we see someone called Burkulis. Yeah. And then we have, I'm not sure this is Spark Canister, which looks suspiciously like the Matrix of Leadership. I wonder if Dan Wood Johnson has a little nod. And then we have where we have Devastator fighting some other giant robot, and of course they punch each other, because of course they do. And then here comes a freaking train! A train at them, it's awesome. Yep. And then we see, looks like Cybertron, looks like it's literally falling apart because of all the battle sons of the planet. And then we see Megatron reunited with basically one of the people loyal to him. Then we see Thundercracker arrive back at the Ark, where he has met up with Skywarp, put it back together. And more stuff here with the Autobots. And then we see, looks like Ultra Magnus in the middle of the woods. And it looks like they're preparing for another conflict with the Decepticons. A lot of really good stuff here. And then this new Transformer show up. His name is Shredhead. Yep, his name is Shredhead. Who he is? Well, he basically sliced up people up, and then Ultra X was a gun to take on the army for some reason, because the army thinks that there's they apparently don't. They apparently got the info that there's two separate factions. I do appreciate, though, the fact that Dan Ward Johnson is having some nods to the original G1 comic by Marvel. Like the whole thing of the army firing on the Autobots, that's a nod to that book or the gun. Excuse me, former of Megatron, which was quite nice. And then the book ends with Starscream and Soundwave reunited with Megatron. Who then, of course, basically says, "Be silent." And then Ravage comes to him. He grabs him. Looks like he parts up his chest. Actually, he gives looks like he bring back to life. He gives it back to Soundwave. Astro Train. Yep. And of course they all retreat. And that's that. Really good stuff here. I give this book a 10 out of 10. It was awesome. Alright, next up we have is Invincible. Yeah, I thought basically a third companion would be here, but it's not. Nope, it is not. And so we have another Rhode Island book. This one's by Robert Kirkman. This is Volume 18 of the Invincible graphic novel series. This is Death of Everyone. This contains issues 97 to 102. Mostly put, here's what happens. Basically, Nolan and Mark Small are back on Earth. Mark finds out Eve is pregnant. Nolan has a fight with Regent Trag, which he wins and proclaims. By the way, the reason why he's fighting him is because he have found out that Nolan is the heir to this previous ruler who died. Somehow he is, and apparently he didn't care, but he didn't want to be the leader, but killing him hadn't made no choice in the matter. Also, he criticized Alyssa for not basically procreating with a human. Well, that comes to play. Basically, he procreated with somebody. We'll find that out with the very next trade, if that is next trade, because, oh boy, yeah, and Nolan becomes the emperor of the remains of the Voltron Empire. What remains of people? About 37 of them, and there's plenty on Earth. The fact that also Mark is working with Cecile again. And the fact also the other placement, there is a placement as Invincible, had proceeded to have a misunderstanding related to his girlfriend, which of course resulted in the death of his parents, all because of a misunderstanding, which resulted in him killing his parents, and then of course him grieving over the fact he just murdered his parents. He also basically proceeded to shove the car, and also briefly Mark lost his powers. Also, the one thing I did notice though in this book is that Eve has apparently trimmed down. She basically kind of looks like what she does before Mark left, or previously, where before basically she was a bit chunky. Mark had no problem with it all because he still loved her, and then by this book she has slimmed down and now she's pregnant. And also they bring in an independent doctor who assisted Immortal Man and his wife in birth of their children. Which, of course, at first Eve is reluctant to trust him because, well, she thinks he works for Seal, but no, she's independent. She probably just knows the Seal, but she's just basically independent. Seal recommended her. There's that. But that's kind of what happens over the course of these 6 issues. Oh, also, Mark briefly does die. Yeah, he does die. By the hands of an evil dinosaur scientist who Mark freed, and then he killed him, came back. All because of Scourge Virus. Also, he apparently... First he wears it out on the cover, and then he goes back to his classic outfit, the one the other Invincible basically wore. Also in public for some weird reason, because of the fact he changed his costume, people thought he was Invincible. Not Invincible, not Invincible. And the other guy's Invincible. But he's going to be soon phased out of the series because... Well, Mark is going to become the focus character of this book. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're going to have something drastic happen to the character. Oh boy. We'll find that out in the very next trade for this one. But this was really good. I give this book roughly a 9 out of 10. Oh, also I give Chancellor Wars a 10 out of 10. I think I'll give this one actually also a 10 out of 10 as well. Yep. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today's video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications. I'm going to do one more set episode, just 2 more for Lord of Life, and do one more Comic Corn, and I'll call it a night. Okay, next video.